Hello, thank you for watching. I'm happy to see that you're trying to make the most of maybe some extra free time you have at the moment, or maybe you're just thinking that this is a time you want to take control of something, and that thing is your writing skills. So let's get started. Okay, so today's topic is still on writing task 2, the independent essay, where you're sharing your opinion. We're going to look at some essay samples and some typical mistakes to avoid, ones that we see all the time. So we want to make sure that you know what they are and you're not going to do that in your exam. First, about me. I studied linguistics and education at university. Loved linguistics. It's my favorite subject, and that's why after I finished my first degree, I thought I would go back again to university, studied education, so I could talk to people about linguistics and about language. I've been doing that. I've been working for 8 years now as an ESL teacher with adults. Some experience with kids, but I like the more advanced stuff. I teach for TOEFL for this website, TST. I'm working with all the sections, reading, speaking, writing, and listening. I can't believe I almost forgot one. I definitely have taught them all today, so they should be fresh in my mind. My current hobby, what I'm spending my free time on at the moment, I'm learning about geography on YouTube. I have a new favorite channel that's called Geographics, and it's great. I never really knew too much about geography when I was younger, and I've been learning as I've traveled, but now I can't travel. I'm traveling through my computer screen, through my phone, seeing everything that I want to visit when I can again. Now for the lesson goals. Today we're going to try to have a deeper understanding of how grammar and vocabulary can affect your score. And we're going to analyze and learn from other examples as we have the last few classes. Keep going with that strategy. If you feel like you want more, then this is the way. You can have a half an hour trial lesson where we can talk about any section you want. If it's going to be writing, make sure you send me some of it before we do our trial lesson, because then I'll be able to have a quick look through and know what to focus on for our 30 minutes. Here is the lovely Joanna. She was a wonderful student that unfortunately was feeling rather down, frustrated. She did the test 9 times before coming to work with us, and we worked together. It was a lot of work. She tried to do 2 hours every day for 4 weeks, and she was able to get the score. She got the 26 that she needed. She got 94 total, and now she's able to work as an architect in the US. She actually didn't think she was going to get the result on that test, and she wanted to book some more classes. But I said, look, why don't you wait a bit, see how you go? And when she got the results, she was so excited. So if you are feeling like you're frustrated, could be time to make a change, could be time to think, well, on my own, it's not working out so well. Let's try with some help. And with us, we can help get you out of the rut that you're in, help you to see new things that you can try to make this time the last time. So here we are again with the rubrics. To get a high score, you want to follow the rubrics of the ETS, of TOEFL. And as I've said before, they are quite complicated how they're written here. They use sophisticated language, which is actually what you want to be using as well, but you might not be completely sure what they mean, or you might not be able to remember this to be able to check your own writing, or you just can't keep it all in your mind as you are writing. So instead of trying to look through this, it's a good idea to have something a bit more easy to work through. Our grading criteria, this is numbered. Every option, every part of this is easy to understand, easy to remember. You know what they mean. So as you're writing, as you're editing your writing, as you're checking your writing later, you can be sure that you are doing all of these things. We want to see development. We want to see a variety. We want to see that everything is organized and structured very well. That makes it easier to read. We want it to be appropriate to this task. There's a lot of different ways you can write in English and speak, but we are thinking for what's appropriate for this type of essay in this particular test. We, of course, need to address the topic and clarity. Clarity is so important, again, with being easy to read. If it's not clear for the examiner, that means they're going to get stuck on something, have to go back, wondering what you mean by that word, that sentence is not a good sign. Okay, let's get into it. So we have our first independent question here. This one is looking at which is better, being healthy and caring for your wellness, or are you thinking more about relationships? Are you thinking about your friends and family first? And that's going to be best for your life. So it's a very long question here. However, when it comes down to it, when you read it and you pull out the main ideas, you have to choose healthy, relationships. Which one? Just choose one. I had a question from last week's video, and it was a student wondering if they should have 2 paragraphs with one side and then a contrasting paragraph. And I said that we should stick with the one side. It says here, which opinion do you agree with? They don't want to know why you disagree with the other one. The question is all about that one side that you are agreeing with. So stick with that side. And like I said in the last class, don't get intimidated by a long question. In the end, it still is just a 2-option prompt here, or preference, if you want to call it that. Do you want this? Do you want that? Which is correct? Which one do you think is the best? Which one do you agree with? Okay, now we have a student who has written their reply. We've got here the introduction and what I hope is not the full first paragraph, maybe just a part of it here. So let's have a look through. They have chosen one side. Here we can see they mention the other one. As I mentioned last week, they do not need to have this second part. We're going to focus on healthy. And if we look here, press pause if you want to have a look for yourself before I tell you. If we look here, this is very short, like I said. This is telling us something, but it is going against the first thing we looked at in our in our grading criteria. Development. Okay, we need to see development. We need to see not just your idea and a little bit in the same sentence that goes to an example. Your first paragraph needs to be full. It needs to be at least 7 or 8 sentences long. This is only 1 sentence. Okay, so to help you develop, we have a template. Here it is. This template shows you what you need in your introduction. You can see that the introduction has 3 sentences. You're going to have an opening sentence here. You're going to say what your opinion is on the topic. You don't need to go into detail about what your reasons are here. If you think that you can express them in one way here, that's going to be different from your first paragraph and from the conclusion, then you can if you want to. However, if you think you don't have enough vocabulary to have that variety, then follow our template. Just say for 2 main reasons. Looking at this first paragraph, we need to state our reason first of all, then we're going to further explain it. You might think that in your first sentence it's very clear that people should definitely understand you from that and you don't need to say anything else. Well, it's not about whether you need it, but you should do it because we want that development. You should be able to make it a bit more specific in these sentences, or 1 sentence to 1 to 3 we have here. So at least have 1 to further explain, to give some more specifics about what your reason is. So this student has talked about how exercise is the best for good health. So in their next sentence, for further explaining it, they could talk about what types of exercise. Give something that people can picture, can imagine, and really be sure they know what you're talking about. Then we're going to switch to our example. Good transition there, using sophisticated language, good structures to get you into your personal example. This example needs to be at least 3 sentences long. 5 would be great if you can keep talking about your example. Think about how we tell stories. We talk about what was happening before, the change that came into place, and the result of it. So that's 3 sentences for you there. And if you're going to add extra details, they can be about those topics there. This person in their example talked about diseases related to bones as an example. It would be better if we heard about someone who didn't like exercise, never wanted to improve, got a disease connected to their bones, which made their life very difficult. That would be going through the beginning. There's no change actually in this one, so it would just be the continuation, the details of their lifestyle, and then what it resulted in. If we look back at the independent one, at the template, yes, we also need at the end here to have a closing sentence. This is something almost every student, when they first come to me, they forget this sentence. It's not a conclusion, but it is a final sentence. It's something that ties up your argument there, your paragraph, connects things back to your reason, to the topic. We need this because it's going to make things, as we spoke about, it's going to make things very clear about why you've told that story why that story connects to what we're talking about. Again, you might think, oh, it's so clear, why am I saying the same thing again? Well, I'm sorry, that is the style that we write in English. You might feel like you're repeating things, and maybe you are, but that is the style that is appreciated. That is what the examiners are looking for. So perhaps it's different in your first language. Perhaps you are used to things being very direct, and you should not say things again and again. Here, we do. So try to shift your brain over into this English way of doing things. So as we said, that one there was a bit of an issue on developing the topic. Also, by not developing, we couldn't see a variety. We couldn't see any organization, and we couldn't see so many words and phrases there. So these things impact each other. Keep these in mind as we look at the next student's example. This one, you can already see that it's a lot larger, so obviously development is not going to be an issue here. So take a look, think about it, press pause, analyze it. Let's see if we agree on what criteria this one is not following. And we're ready. With this one, the introduction is going overboard and off topic. I mentioned this in the video last week, but I'll just quickly go over it again. Talking about technology and traffic, stress, being busy are not really connected to facilities improving the community. I think we want an opening sentence here that talks about the topic, that talks about how the community has needs. However, who is to say which one is the most important? Looking past that, we can see that this first paragraph is not so organized. All of these highlighted pieces here are examples. They are talking about what is supporting the reason for having the park. We have here people playing with the ball, these people riding bicycles, then here picnic, here visiting, here meeting new people. We have so many different examples spread around here. It's not flowing, it's kind of going back and forth. So if we remember our template, with the template, we're going through the reason first. I like to tell my students to keep this first part. First of all, the reason and this further explanation, keep that in general. Keep that as people, you, we. Talk about what is benefiting people as a whole in there. Once you transition into the story is when you're talking about I, me, and my, and you're giving those details. You're really, really building that full picture for the person reading to be able to fully see what you are talking about and to believe you, to think that your reason is great and to think that the way you have expressed yourself has really supported this, and to come away believing what you have said. Maybe not agreeing, but they believe you. So looking back here, we can see that it is not flowing so well. So I want to show you now an example because I think this will help you to see. In this essay here, we can see how the template is working. This part here is the reason and 2 further sentences further explaining it. So it says here the reason is about how reading text messages is an invasion of privacy. We further explain how that is a bad thing. If you invade someone's privacy, that means you don't trust that person. Trust is incredibly important. So you see all of that there has really drilled in about what this person means by privacy and why losing or invading privacy is a terrible idea. Now we transition into a story. This one is not a personal story, it's an anecdote of someone that the author knows, and it keeps going down to here. We can see we have 3 sentences there, and the result, that is the personal example, well, anecdote in this case, that is all together with those details creating that picture in the head. We can see who it was, we can see what they were doing, what continued to happen, and the result of that. And of course, last of all, we have our final sentence. That is tying back with this reason, tying back to the topic, the opinion that we're not going to, or that we recommend people not read their children's text messages. Okay, so that is the essay. That is the structure of the first paragraph and the second. But of course, in the second one, you're not going to use all the same transitions. You want to show variety. But that is the structure, a good example of a first paragraph. Now let's go back. As we said for that one, organization and structure were the main culprits there. That does affect the clarity. If things are going back and forth, then it's hard for the reader to really feel that you are developing, to really follow what your ideas are. On to our third one now. This question is about life today is better than it used to be, but our current way of life will have negative impact on further generations. Take a look at this one. Press pause, analyze, see what you see. Let's come back in a few minutes and see if you agree with what I say. You might have noticed this one is very good in terms of structure and development. So you might think, wow, if I'm still looking at what we corrected in the last 2, this one's so great. It is very well done. However, we still have some things to look at. And again, what we're looking at here, as we have looked at in previous videos, is grammar. Grammar, some things are quite little. In this part here, that should be then. It's only 1 letter. You might think, well, what's the big deal? Anyone reading that would know what I mean. It's just a letter. Unfortunately, these things are added up. There is a computer that is finding those mistakes, a computer program, and it is counting them. And it's going to make an equation with your mistakes that you've made over how long you have written the essay. So it does matter. It affects your score. And the fact that it's in the first sentence there, the examiner reads this If they find a mistake in that first sentence, they're already thinking, oh, here we go. Here is another essay that's going to be difficult for me to read because of mistakes. And you don't want them to think that. Even if you have a few mistakes, it's okay, but having them in the first sentence and having a few in that introduction gives that bad first impression, and it can be hard to change that impression later on, even if the rest of the essay is perfect. They're already thinking, oh, not sure about this one. So we want to turn that around. So first one here, that should be then. Here, we should have something connected to the present. Treated a better way of living. But the following generations will suffer the consequences of that for a number of reasons. Not that actually, because we're talking about a better way of living, suffer the consequences of this. I would have this because it's still the same sentence. Looking down further, computer in singular, right next to it, cars in plural. When we're speaking in general, should be in plural. Cars here, computers there. Internet, well, there's not more than one internet, so we can't make that plural. However, it still is a mistake because we need the. Always when you say internet, you say the internet. We keep going through here. Large amounts of, this should be a noun. Pollutes is a verb, so we need the noun, which is pollution to the environment. Keep on going here. I have to admit my opinion on this matter has been profoundly, oh wait, no, we can't have that because of impact. We would say has profoundly impacted. Okay, so has impacted. We're using present perfect here. If you've got has in there, then you're going to add the ed. My life, because. I feel like because might be here for something other than grammar, so I'm going to come back to that. Here, this is something I think I might know the nationality of, or at least the language of the person who has written this. My sons and grandsons. Now this implies that this person only cares about the male descendants in their family. They do not care about the daughters or granddaughters. So this is probably because in the first language, the general term is the male term. In English, it's not. In English, you would need to say my children and grandchildren. I have had so many times when I have asked my students, here I live in Colombia where people speak Spanish, and this is the case. And people say, well, I ask them about their family. I say, oh, do you have children? And they say, yes, I have 2 sons. One of them is Maria. And I think that's an interesting name for a woman, for a daughter. And then I realize, oh, wait, they mean they have 2 children, not 2 sons. So it's a difference there. Watch out for it. Now, this one is again what I think this one might be, is that it's not so much grammar, but about being appropriate. Like is a little too relaxed. I would prefer you to write here, such as skin cancer and pneumonia. With because I think we can use, but we don't want to overuse it. It is one of the most popular and unfortunately most basic connectives, transitions. When you can, do your best to use something a little bit more complicated, a little bit more sophisticated. So that ties in with clarity and appropriate words and phrases. Those things, of course, affect the ease of reading for the examiner, you might think, well, they can just correct it. They know what it means. I know what it means because I am working with students every day. I'm used to seeing these things, and sometimes I don't even notice I correct it. But examiners are not like that. They are checking, they are noticing, and sometimes they might not have taught and they might not really know what you are saying in there. So we want to get that number of mistakes down. We want to go back, have a look through, and I guess the best way to really improve grammar is to have this done for you, to have someone look through and say, look, you can't write it that way. You need to write it this way. Or even someone says, look, you can't write it that way. This is the grammar point that you're having trouble with. That's what caused this mistake. You should try to review it. You should try to do some examples, do some activities, do some exercises with that topic so that you're not going to continue making that same mistake. If it's like this, then it's something across languages. So you're going to need to look into the differences between your first language and English. If it's like this, that it's missing the it's called articles. So you can look up articles and you can find some explanations, some examples there. Here I changed it from with to of. That is something so many students want to talk about, prepositions. Prepositions, reviewing them is a bit of a nightmare though, because there are so many things involved. This website I sometimes recommend students to look at. It has a lot of explanations and examples for different grammar points. If we look at prepositions here, we can see you can review prepositions with time, with place, prepositions that match certain adjectives, prepositions that match certain verbs, and that match certain nouns or phrases. And that's not even all of it. So I recommend, yes, try to study these things, but also try to make a list of every time you have made a mistake with a preposition, the sentence around it, and really keep that in mind. Have a list of the things that you have done before that have been corrected, and after you finish a new essay, look at that list, look at your new essay and check, or have I done the same thing again? Okay. So that is what I would recommend there. If you want to learn even faster and not have to do all of that by searching yourself, then with a teacher, you're going to have that explanation. You're going to be given some activities to do straight away, some homework. It will be difficult and it might take a while to change those bad habits, but with time, it will work. Looking back at the criteria here, we've already seen this. So this lesson is over. I hope you have gained a deeper understanding about the grammar and vocabulary there. And from looking at these other students, you have started to notice some things from your writing, or maybe some things you never thought of, but now you know not to do them. Just before I go, remember, if you want to talk and learn and discover more, we have this sale, just $9 for a 30-minute trial lesson. You can book it for a time that suits you, and we will talk. We will see what is difficult for you, and I will let you know all my recommendations. So thank you again for joining. I hope you've learned plenty, and I'll see you next week.